Cool. I think we're ready to get started. Welcome to Introduction to Tableau Prep. My name is Archana Ganeshalingam. I've been a product consultant here at Tableau for about 2 years now. But before that, my first venture into the space of data and analytics was as a bright-eyed intern about 3 years ago at a supermarket chain. And I was assigned a project to start segmenting customers by their purchasing habits. But I had never used SQL before, and I was just given 2 days of SQL coding training from grads not much older than myself at the time. So you can probably imagine how that went. The queries I was writing were incredibly inefficient, would take hours to run, and then when they finally did, they would be the wrong results. But it was during that internship that I learned about Tableau and how powerful visual analytics is, and realized that it could have cut 8 weeks out of that 10-week internship. And that's part of the reason why I jumped at the chance to present Tableau Prep to you all today. Because Tableau Prep would have cut out that last week of that internship, and I could have had 2 months off to go enjoy the summer sun. And I want you to hold on to your hats, as this is the first time Tableau Prep is going to be presented since the official release of the product last April. So that's the part of the reason why the session is being live streamed. So I'm just going to wave hello to everyone watching on the live stream. And let's jump in. So I want you to leave this session with an understanding of what Tableau Prep is and what it can do. Then we're going to take a look at 4 different use cases, and along the way meet these 5 characters. Hopefully one of these 5 characters resonates with you, because if it does, then you're a good candidate for someone to try using Tableau Prep. Hopefully you feel leaving excited to try Tableau Prep, as well as excited for what's coming when we look ahead. And I know you guys have all just come from the keynote, so you've already had a glimpse of that earlier. So let's start with something I think all of you guys in this audience can identify with, because that's why you're here. Data prep is challenging. You often be trying to get data in the right format, but get stuck, because the tools that you have might be complicated or require specialized skill set. Or they might even be too expensive, so you might not even have a data preparation tool in your organization. Anyone in the room know that feeling? Just nod or raise your hands. Yeah? There's a bunch of faces in the room nodding. I've often heard customers say that they don't really have data prep challenges. But that's probably because they're not actually doing the data prep work that they need. But just imagine the lost opportunity that's being missed out on from that analysis, the insights that it could have led to, and the revenue or cost savings that it could have generated. And then think to the other version of the scenario, where you have someone else doing the data prep analysis for you. There can be a gap between the data prep output that they give you and the analysis you're trying to achieve, just because that person in the middle doesn't understand your needs. How many of you guys are in that scenario? You're inheriting data from someone else. Yeah? Yeah, a lot of hands going up. So, according to the Harvard Business Review, many analysts spend 80% of their time preparing data, but just 20% of it analyzing it. We want to reverse that ratio so that our customers can spend more time answering the questions that they need to with the data that they have. And that's why we developed Tableau Prep. We're taking the Tableau approach to the data prep space, making things visual and direct, using smart defaults so that you're not wasting time, and of course integrated with the Tableau platform, whether that be desktop, online, or Tableau server. So let's start with visual and direct. You've already seen probably something similar to this screenshot during the keynote. The flow, profile planes, and data grid give you a complete picture of your flow and data. You can even interact directly with the profile pane to filter values, create groups and calculations, and instantly see the results of those actions, even on millions of rows of data. By far, though, my favorite thing about Tableau Prep is the visual cues that are built into the product to make complex data prep tasks simple. It's the thing that would have saved me hours during that internship, understanding the difference between inner and left joins. So, Tableau Prep uses smart algorithms to fix common data prep challenges. What you're seeing on screen right now is a fuzzy clustering algorithm that lets you group by pronunciation with just one click. By intelligently pushing down operations to the database level when possible, I can focus on staying in the flow rather than worrying about how the design of my flow makes it more or less inefficient. Take this example. I want to look at my monthly sales by city. I realized towards the end of my analysis that I'm only interested in the UK data. Now with prep, I can add that step to the end of my flow, but not worry about the performance impact, because I know it will push that keep UK operation to the very beginning, so that even in those 2 intermediary steps, it's still only pulling through the UK data. I don't have to worry about rejigging the steps in my flow to make it work. How many people in the audience have actually used Tableau Prep before? Can we raise our hands? Okay, so not many of you. So for those of you who haven't put your hands up, don't worry about it, because Tableau Prep should feel familiar to you anyway. The seamless drag and drop interface, the same calculation language, and the immediate feedback that you are used to from using Tableau Desktop is exactly the same in Prep. So don't think of it as a new tool to learn. Instead, you can get up to speed really quickly. It's also easy to open your flow output with Tableau Desktop, or to publish it to server and online. Again, bridging that gap between the analytics and the data prep output that you're trying to achieve. So, what can Tableau Prep actually do? So 3 main things. You can combine and integrate multiple data sets through joins and unions. You can interact with and clean your data sets using grouping, splits, and calculations. And you can reshape and aggregate your data. As I said at the beginning, we're going to be taking a look at 4 examples, 4 main use cases, and we'll meet 5 characters along the way. Hopefully you identify with 1 or more of these characters, because if you do, I think Prep is probably the right solution for you. So let's jump in. In the same way a DJ might curate a playlist, or I guess these days it might be a Spotify or Apple Music algorithm instead, the data DJ is someone who curates a data source for the rest of their team or organization. They need to be able to do all those things I just mentioned, combining data sources, creating calculated fields, and of course publishing that to online or server so that they have shared the single source of truth with the rest of their team so that then it can be leveraged in their analysis. So we jump to our first example, Superstore. So if you guys have seen a demo from us, you'll know the dataset Superstore. For those of you that don't, Superstore is a fictional office supply store, and there's a story behind that data set that says that in the Netherlands, sales of tables are pretty bad in terms of we're selling a lot, but we're not making a lot of money from them. We're actually making a loss. And so the decision was made by the Superstore managers to acquire a set of stores called Supply Max in region, so in the Netherlands. And we're going to take a look at the impact of that acquisition on the rest of our data. So let's jump into Prep now. So this is Tableau Prep, and I'm going to go ahead and start by connecting to a CSV. Since we're in the process of this acquisition, we don't have the full data sets between Supply Max and Superstore combined into one yet. We want to, they're still separate entities, and so we're just working with a CSV for the moment. So I'm going to be connecting to my Supply Max Netherlands data set. So we'll start by letting that load in to Prep and add in our first clean step. It's when we add our clean step that we get a preview of our data on the profile pane and the data grid. The profile pane is really handy, as you can see those bar charts that show me the distribution of my data so that I can start to spot patterns and outliers within my data set. If I scroll along, we can even start to interact with our data set before we do any analysis. For example, take these cities. I can go ahead and sort them to see that Amsterdam is the top selling city. Makes sense because it's the biggest city in Netherlands. I can also begin to spot outliers. Take a look at sales here. There are some values in my data set that have negative 10,000 sales. It doesn't make sense because I know this data set doesn't contain any returns data. If I go ahead and click on it, what Tableau Prep will do will highlight those rows across my entire profile pane, so I can spot if there are any issues or patterns in the data. What I see here is that the number of units sold associated with those rows of data is 0, and that there's no customer name attached to those specific orders. This suggests that it's a data input issue. So let me go ahead and exclude those values. And straight away, on those thousands of rows, we've seen that corrected. Some of you guys might have noticed when I connected to the data in the first place, ship modes weren't quite correct. We've got first and first class, second and second class. Now, both you and I know that that means the same thing, and so does prep. All I have to do is hit group by pronunciation, and Tableau Prep is automatically grouping those fields together for me, again, on the thousands of rows of data in this data set. Now that I'm happy with the way this data looks, I'm ready to add in my existing Superstore data. Now, this is my data, so it's on-premise and it's on a SQL server. So let's go ahead and connect to that. Hopefully don't make a spelling mistake here. We'll connect to our database, EU Superstore, and drag in the orders table. Now here, we have our data set from the Netherlands sitting up top. And what we want to do is append or add the new rows for the orders table. In Tableau Prep, that operation is a union. So if I just zoom in, you'll see here the text appear for a new union. Let's drop that in. Now, as this data loads in, you can already see the color coding apply. Here we've got blue for the CSV data that we've been cleaning up so far, and orange for the SQL Server data that we've just added in. But there seems to be an inconsistency here. Take a look at units sold. It doesn't have a match in the orange table, in the SQL Server table. Let's see what's going wrong there. We'll hit Show Only Mismatch Fields, and there it is. Units sold is called quantity in my other data set. There's a mismatch of naming convention. That's okay, because all I have to do is drag and drop to merge my fields. It's as easy as that. With company, I'm just going to keep that as is, because keeping that company row means that I can use that in my analysis later to spot the supply max stores versus the Superstore stores. Say that a few times fast, it's tricky. Say that again, sorry? Yeah, you'll be able to. I'm going to be taking questions at the end as well. Yeah, no worries. So now that we've got our sales data together, both our supply max and Superstore data, let's take a look at what we have left. Let me add a step. And the thing you'll see here is that our product ID is the only information about the products we have. If I scroll along, I don't have information about the product name or which category or subcategory it belongs to. So how am I supposed to do my product analysis without that information? I need to bring in my master product list. That's stored in an Excel file that I'll bring in. And you'll see that populate here in the pink tables. So this time, we want to bring this data in and integrate it via a join. Let's drag and drop that in and let that load. So here is the thing that would have saved me hours during that internship, and I think this is going to really wow some of you guys. Here we've got our summary of join results. At the moment, I'm using an inner join. I've got 15,672 rows in my sales data, and we can see that the join result output is those 15,672 rows. There are 10 being excluded from the green tables and 2,369 being excluded from the pink tables. If I go ahead and switch this to a right join, i.e. keeping everything from that master product list table, immediately the result set is going to update to show me that the join result is now 18,000 rows. Now I know with a bit of understanding of the data that this is not the right join type to use, because not everything listed in that master product list we would have sold. We don't have sales values against it. So I know that the inner join is correct. But still we have this mysterious 10 values that are being excluded. Let's click on that and see what's going wrong. It's these product IDs here. They have the series of 3 dashes on the end. That means they're being mismatched. Again, with Tableau Prep, all I have to do is click, double click to edit those right on screen. And immediately, my join result has updated so that no values are excluded in the join. So with that, I'm happy with the join result. I've combined my 3 data sets together, and I'm ready to share this with the rest of my organization. Let me go ahead and add my output step, where we will publish as a data source. I've already signed into my Tableau Online site, and we'll call this Supply Max Acquisition. And we'll hit Run Flow. While that runs, I'm going to just recap what we just covered. This demo is designed to show you end-to-end a typical flow in Tableau Prep. We started off with a CSV file did some cleanup steps in terms of filtering values and grouping them by pronunciation. We then added in a second data source, the orders table, and performed a cross-data source union to combine that SQL Server data with my CSV data. The last thing we did was add in that master product list using a join. And now you can see that data set has been published. Now, for any Explorer users on your Tableau server or interactors, they can go ahead and now connect to that data source and create a new workbook from right within the browser. For any existing desktop users, they can also connect to that published data source from desktop itself and build their visualizations. So that's our first example. Next, we've got our logs investigator. Anyone in the room here is server admin? You can put your hands up if we have any server admins in the room. Just 1 or 2, 3, 4. I just want to give a quick round of applause to our server admins, all of you, because they're the ones that keep things running behind the scenes without our knowledge. And whether you're administering Tableau Server or one of many other programs, one thing you probably need to do is analyze logs. And I want to show you how the clean step in Tableau Prep can help you dive into those logs without having to pass through lines and lines of code. Now, because most of you guys aren't server admins, you've probably never ever seen server logs before. That's what they look like. Completely terrifying. I can see this guy nodding here. They're horrifying. They're really scary to look at, if I'm being honest. One thing admins might also be familiar with is a tool called Lumberjack. It's a VBA script that converts those log files into a tabular structure that you can analyze easily in Tableau. A colleague on my team, Tom Christian, has created Lumberflume. It's a Tableau prep flow achieving the same thing as this VBA script. Now, this script also looks pretty scary. So when I show you the prep flow, it's going to blow your minds. It's just 3 steps. And one of those steps is an input, and one of those steps is an output. So if you really think about it, it's just a 1-step flow. It's just a single clean step with a series of string calculations to pass out the different fields we need from the logs. This example is designed to show you how Tableau Prep can help you generate data where you think there might be none, with the example of log files. On to our next character, the workaround wizard. This is someone who's a master of transfiguration, whether it be in Excel, Tableau Desktop's data source pane, or another tool. It's the person using Tableau to create vizzes and types of analysis that our development team probably never imagined them doing. They already know what needs to be done to the data, and they're a whiz when it comes to bending the tools they have access to give them the results they need. And speaking specifically about desktop, Tableau Prep will give you all the functionality of the data source pane and more. So the ability to rejig the steps in the order that you want. Suppose you want to do a join and then a union, or a union and then a join. In Prep, you can swap those around, whereas in Desktop, you are fixed to the way the order of operations works in Tableau Desktop. We can also do things that you weren't previously able to do in Tableau Desktop. Things like double pivoting, or as we saw earlier, cross-data source unions. Those are the 2 big ones. So when I first learned about Prep here at Tableau, my mind went straight to survey data. I'd already written the blog post about how to prepare survey data using Tableau Desktop, but I was keen to see how Tableau Prep would work in the same scenario. I've already shared the follow-up post explaining how Prep makes those same steps easier, but I want to show you now, live on the survey that you guys just completed in the audience, how easy it is to analyze survey data using Tableau Prep. So let me go ahead and show you that survey. So while you guys all headed to that link, we can see it started to fill in with our responses. So thank you to all of you who filled those in. Really appreciate that one. Looks like we also have David Beckham in the audience, which is pretty exciting. I'll zoom in on that because that's pretty funny. So thank you to David. Probably happy after the England match yesterday as well. So what I'll do is I'll download that as a CSV. Where is it? CSV. So it's just going to go straight to my downloads file. I'll then go to Prep and open up a new flow. Oops. Connect to data, text file, and it's in my downloads as the first CSV. We'll let that data load in now. We'll add a step to preview the data as well. So for those of you guys who've worked with Tableau Desktop for a while now, you'll know that Tableau prefers its data tall and thin rather than wide and short. So what I mean by that is rather than having fewer rows and many columns, we need to transpose that, so instead it's many rows and fewer columns. And when we talk about survey data specifically, survey data tends to come in the format of a row per respondent. And while this is easy for a human to analyze, because we can just look across the row and see, you know, David Beckham says that he likes this and that and that. With the way a computer works, it needs to be transposed into that column format. So what I need to do is add a pivot step. The other thing to remember with survey data is that when you are analyzing survey data, you want to keep any demographic information separate from the pivot. This is because when you keep it as separate dimensions, you're going to be able to slice and dice your data later by those separate dimensions. So here, I'm just going to take things like the actual questions itself. So the experience rating, what you guys are most excited to do here at conference, and also what products you're using. I'll go ahead and drag and drop that to pivot them, and then rename this question and answers. So I'll just zoom in here. And then let's look at what that does to the actual results set. So where we had 3 columns before representing each of those 3 questions, experience rating, most excited to, and products, we've now taken those 3 and transposed them into a single column. The corresponding answers are now in this column over here. Whoops. In its own separate column. Then we notice our kind of second issue when it comes to survey data, the way those result sets are being stored. For those of you guys who answered the survey, you'll remember that question asking you which Tableau products you're using, desktop, prep, online, or server. And that was a multiple choice question where you could pick many options. And the way the results of those have been collected is in a single cell, storing the combinations of possible products. Now, this is handy to understand where customers are purchasing multiple combinations of products. But what I'm actually curious to know is actually how many people use desktop, regardless of whether they use server, prep, or online in addition to that. So to be able to do that, I need to split this field out. So let's go ahead and click on this column, select Custom Split, and then we want to split on the common delimiter here, which is a comma, and select all our columns. Once I split it, we end up with 4 columns with our individual products. This is exactly what we need. We're getting closer to our result set. The final thing to do is to remove this field from the original data set because we don't need it anymore. Now we've got the different products split up into 4 separate columns. The next thing I need to do is transpose again so that they're in one single column. This is the bit where prep is much more powerful than desktop. In desktop, your analysis would probably stop here and you might need to switch to another tool. With prep though, I can pivot the data for a second time. I can go ahead and take those answers, repivot my data so that I get a response field. Let's go ahead and add the last clean step to just hide this question number field and then also exclude these nulls. Last thing I'll do is add an output step, and this time rather than publishing the data source, I'm just going to save it locally as a file. I'll put it in my survey folder and replace the existing one. Hit yes on that. I'll run this flow, say that I'm happy to replace the data source, and we're done. Let me go ahead and open the dashboard I created earlier. So right now, this has been filtered to my dry run subset. So the only respondent here is Canada, which was from Bethany, who was interviewing me earlier. So let me go ahead and switch that data source filter to look at responses from today. So we're just going to go to Edit Data Source Filter, switch the timestamp from yesterday to today, and hit OK. And there we go. We can see a global map of where everyone in this room has come from. I'll also switch to the dashboard and we can see our responses. We can see that most of the people in the room score TC an average 4.0 out of 5. We can see that most people are here to learn things, so hopefully you leave today's session having learned something new. And we can see that most users are desktop or Tableau Online users. Pretty cool, right? So let's jump back to my slide deck. So that example was designed to show you a little bit more about how Tableau Prep, again, bridges that gap between the data prep output and the analysis you're trying to achieve. Like I said at the beginning of this session, we're going to be looking at 4 examples, but I showed you 5 characters on screen, which can only mean one thing. We're going to end with a duel. On the left, we have our database admin, and on our right, we have our rogue analyst. The database admin will want to store data efficiently. In this example, we're looking at telecoms contracts data, where a row corresponds to a single contract, and we have information about the start date of the contract, its duration, and the total contract value. Now, this data is being stored really effectively if the analysis you wanted to do was just at the contract level. For example, looking at when contracts start, or how long contracts typically last, or what the average total value is. But our rogue analyst is a little bit more ambitious than that. They want to answer this question: how much revenue are we guaranteed? Think about it in a subscriptions world. When someone signs a contract, we're only guaranteed revenue for however long that contract lasts, provided they continue to pay month on month. So what our analyst's visualization is showing here is it's telling us that if we stop selling any more new contracts today, how much revenue are we guaranteed in the future? So we should be concerned because this company is going to run out of money in 2020 if they don't sell anything more. The data in the database doesn't answer that question because all we have is our start dates. We don't have that monthly payment date. And this is where that butting of heads between our database admin and our rogue analyst comes into play. What the rogue analyst needs to be able to complete this type of analysis is this data structure: a row per contract ID per payment month. Now, for those of you in the room who can see this on the screen, you'll understand that this is going to multiply out the data. So the database admin isn't going to be too happy about that, because now for each contract ID, we're going to have multiple rows for however long that contract lasts. And the rogue analyst can't do anything about it. They're just an analyst. They don't have admin or write access to the database to be able to create their own views and tables. So we're going to see how Tableau Prep leverages cross-database joins so that you can keep both parties happy. So let me go ahead and exit, and then jump into Tableau Prep. So for the last time, I'm going to be opening a new flow. We'll connect to our SQL Server data. So this is what the database admin is managing. And we can see our telecoms data being brought in. We'll add a clean step so we can see that. So here, like I said, if I just zoom in, we have one row per contract ID. What we now need to do is pad out the data so that we have multiple rows for each contract ID for the duration of that contract. For that, we need a scaffold table. It's a really simple concept, but it's going to help us pad out the data. This scaffold table just consists of 2 columns: the number of months a contract could last for, which is 24, and a key that we'll be using in a join. Now this data set, you'll notice, doesn't have that key. So that's the first thing we need to do. We need to create a calculated field, the easiest one of them all, which is just the number 1. So that then both data sets have a key that we can join on. Now you're probably thinking, what's the point in joining 1 to 1? Well, let's see. We'll bring in our Microsoft Excel table containing that data, and then join it. Tableau Prep automatically recognizes that it's the key field in common, and here we see the result set. This is what we call a product join. We're taking the 1,000 rows in our contracts table and joining it to the 24 rows in our scaffold table, we're joining every row in data set A to every row in data set B. And this is why the join result is so high. It's literally multiplying the two together. Does that make sense to everyone so far? Cool, because that's probably the hardest bit of this session. So what I can now see, if I add a step, is when we look at each contract ID, we now have 24 rows per contract. Cool. But for those of you in the audience who are keeping up with this example, you'll know that we don't need 24 rows for each contract ID because not necessarily every contract will last for 24 months. So what we need to do is filter our values so that the number of months is less than the duration of the contract. And then we'll get the right result set. Now we can see that contract number 1 has 11 rows associated with it, 1 for each month that that contract lasts. Contract number 2 lasts for 1 year, so 12 rows. I can go ahead and highlight this as well, and you'll see that value update. So here, contracts that have a duration of 2 months, there's just 1 so far. It's that contract ID number 12. I can also do things like hide the 2 keys that I don't need now, because they're not part of the analysis. And then I just need to do the last 2 pieces of this puzzle to be able to create the visualization that we saw at the very beginning. At the moment, we only have start dates in our data set. What we need is the actual payment date that the money is being paid on. That's the value we care about. We don't care about when the person signed the contract. We care about when we get paid. So let me go ahead and create that one. Payment date, and zoom in. It's a date add calculation where we add in months the number of months a contract could last for to the start date. So let me hit save on that, and we can see that calculation now created. The final thing we have to do is distribute these amounts across the entire duration of the contract. Because we saw with that example of contract number 1 that it's worth £320 over the course of 11 months, which means that person is paying £30 a month for their phone bill. So we need to create that field called monthly payment. That's an easy one. It's just amount divided by duration. Let me hit save on that. And then with this one, I'm not 100% sure that I've done it right, let's say. And what we want to do is, rather than putting an output step straight away, is check that the flow is actually right. So what I can do is just preview this in Tableau Desktop and check that I'm actually doing the right thing before going ahead and adding that output in. So let me go ahead and hit done. And then we'll see Desktop opened here on my screen. Yeah. So now we have our monthly payment. We have the payment date, so the date at which the money is due, which we can put in the view at a monthly level. And then to create the viz that analyst wanted, we just have to add product to color and then switch it to an area chart. This is to highlight where Tableau Prep fills in that gap between the data prep output and the analysis that the analyst is trying to achieve. Because the output is set in this fixed structure where it's a row per contract ID, it doesn't answer the question that they wanted to be able to start analyzing monthly revenue. And so what we've done with Prep is enabled that middle user, that analyst, to build a data set of their own. So hopefully through these 4 examples, you have a better understanding of what Tableau Prep can do for you and see where you might fit in as a potential user of Tableau Prep. So I want to do a quick survey of the audience to just see which one of these characters we have more of in the room. So hands up to our data DJs, the people curating data sources for the rest of their teams. Hold them up high. Yeah, there's quite a few of you. Any logs investigators? I know there was only a few server admins in the room, so not many of those. Kind of standard. What about workaround wizards? So those are the people who are really nifty with Tableau Desktop. Yeah, a few more of you. Database admins, anyone? Yeah? You seem to be putting up your hand for everything. You're all of them. What about rogue analysts? Yeah, Tableau Prep is probably most exciting for you guys, but it looks like we have mostly the data DJs in the room. So hopefully you guys enjoy the party and the music at the party tonight as well. So you're probably keen to get your hands on it. And this is where I come to one of the most boring slides in my presentation, so I'm going to apologize in advance for this. It's the nitty-gritty details. So for existing desktop users, the good news is you already have Tableau Prep. You'll find your Tableau Prep key in the customer portal. Go ahead and use it. It's free to use until 2020. For new users, you can go ahead and get a free 14-day trial of Tableau Prep at tableau.com/prep. You can also speak to your account manager about the Creator package, which includes Tableau Prep, Desktop, and a seat on either Tableau Online or Server. So 3 products for the price of 1. So I've already answered one of your questions, and I know we had a few in the room as we went along, but I'm going to take a moment to take any questions from the room now. I think we have roaming mics as well, so people on the live stream can hear. Do you mind? Thank you. I don't have the mic up front, sorry. Do we have a mic up at the back? A handheld one? Awesome. We'll come to you first. There's one lady at the front here at the corner. We had her first.
Hello.
Oh. It should be on. I think it is on now. Yeah.
I was just wondering what version of Tableau Desktop you needed to support this, or will it support anything?
Yeah, so Tableau Prep outputs to both TDE and Hyperfile, so it doesn't matter what version of desktop you're on at the moment.
Bro, thank you.
And thank you for Christina for being my room manager last minute.
Hey, thank you so much. That was extremely useful. Do you know if there are any plans to replace the Tableau Desktop data source window with Tableau Prep entirely?
So not at the moment, no. I think Tableau Prep is going to remain as a separate product. We wouldn't integrate the two because we think that the people doing the data prep are a slightly different audience to the people building the visualizations in desktop. So I don't think we'll remove that data source pane entirely because it adds the simple level of functionality that the typical user might need.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Say I create a complex flow and I publish it to the server. When a user creates a report off of it, when is that flow actually materialized? Is that materialized when you publish it, or is that when it's actually interrogated by the report?
Yeah. So for the moment, when you publish a flow, it's publishing an extract of your data set. So when you hit run flow, it's going to run that entire flow, create an extract, and publish it onto server. So that extract is a static file that sits on your server that the user would be connecting to. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, and I guess the follow-up was that, is that data source automatically refreshed, or is it refreshed by user?
I will be addressing the answer to that question in my next slide, so I'll come on to that. Cool. Any other questions from the room? Sorry, I'm going to have to wait for the mic to get round to you guys because we are being live streamed. Yeah, go ahead. Hopefully the live stream catches it. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, that's unfortunately a question I don't know the answer to, as I am the technical person rather than the commercial person. But no, that's something I can feed back and find out more about. But it'd be one to speak to your account manager about.
Hi, yeah. Can you just talk about repeatability? So, for example, can you separate the logical flows from the input data?
Do you have an example just to elaborate on that one?
Yeah, in our use case, we have to keep our customer data separate for each individual customer. So we might have like 36 different customers, and therefore, when we want to produce a visualization for them, we would have to do that step, that flow 36 times if we were doing prep for each customer. So could we automate that that flow 36 times over?
Oh, I
Because
see. Okay, being able to
the input
script.
files would be analogous, but they would be different, if you see what I mean. They would have the same structure, but they'd be different.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting use case, and it kind of fits into the question about scheduling. So I'll come on to that in just a second, but I want to take a note of that one down to feedback to our product manager, Arthur, as well, because that's a really good suggestion.
Hi.
Hiya.
How easy is it to keep track of what changes are being made at each step?
Yeah.
I noticed that there was a few images coming on top of the tools, but
Yeah, so any changes you make to the data source, I didn't call this one out, are recorded in the changes call out. So that's where you keep an audit, a trackable audit of any of the changes you're making to your data set. The cool thing about this as well is that I can drag and drop to rearrange those steps as well if I need to change the order. Cool. I think that's it for questions. Oh, one more over there. That will be the last question, then I'll stick around at the end for any more.
Hi, yeah. You've used a number of steps to like change the grain by pivoting and stuff. Obviously, you could do that in SQL as well, but how many steps can you do before it starts getting sort of unperformant comparative to SQL, for example?
Yeah, so you'll see an example of this in IronViz tomorrow about how far a prep flow can go. It's designed to be performant by pushing down the operations to the database when possible. So I guess the answer is it depends on the infrastructure that your database sits on as to how performant things will be. Cool. I will be sticking around at the end if you do have any more specific questions, but I do want to get on to looking ahead. So we know that customers are crying out for more data connectors, more transformations, and scheduling. Scheduling is a big one. And just so you know, this is just the beginning of Tableau's venture into the data prep space. We're only on our second release of Tableau Prep, and so we're continuously working with our development team to release more and more features and functionality. One thing you should know about Tableau Prep is that it's on a 30-day release cycle rather than the usual 90-day release cycle that you're used to with desktop. And an example of how impactful that is already since release 1 and 2, we've added in the new feature of being able to do coordinated pivots. So far you've seen me just do the simple example of taking a few columns and transposing them. What a coordinated pivot allows you to do is take two sets of columns and pivot them around at the same time rather than as two separate pivot steps. So that's really helpful for anyone doing geospatial analysis, trying to do path mapping between 2 points. With regards to the scheduling question that came up earlier as well, that's one thing that's high on the ticket. We want you to be able to automate your flows so that you don't have to run them manually each time. We're working to get that into our Tableau server product, but I unfortunately cannot give you a timeline on that just yet. So, if you are keen to learn more, I've got 3 sessions to recommend to you. And these sessions are really useful because they're the sessions that I actually sneakily stole examples from for this one. So if you see yourself as that workaround wizard or are interested in learning more about survey data specifically, head to Emma's session straight after this one in Capital Suite rooms 15 and 16, where she'll be delivering the session Visualizing Survey Data with Tableau Prep and Tableau Desktop. There are a few admins dotted around the room, so for them specifically, I want to shout out that you can meet Tom Christian, the mind behind that Tableau Prep flow that sorts through the server logs. He'll be presenting a session on the tools available to you to monitor your Tableau server. That's tomorrow morning. And then finally, Bethany will be delivering a session on how Tableau and Tableau Prep help solve a personal life crisis of hers. And all I'm going to say with that is the alternative title for that session at one point was Bethany versus the UK government. And I can't say too much more because it will spoil the session, but definitely head to that one because it's a great story. Do be warned though, it is a Jedi session, so you need to be a little bit more of an advanced desktop user. The final thing is if you're still hungry to learn more, we've got our website, tableau.com/learn. In the same way that we've always had on-demand training videos for Tableau Desktop, we've also now got videos for Tableau Prep. So if you do want to learn more about how to use Tableau Prep yourselves, that would be the perfect place to start. The other thing is the post-conference site. So my slide deck, along with the Tableau Prep flows that I've been using during this session, as well as the materials from the hands-on sessions happening parallelly, now will be made available to you on the post-conference site. So make sure to head there for more information. So with that, you've already seen how Tableau Prep can help you work with survey data, with the survey I asked you to fill in at the beginning. But I want to bookend this session by asking you to just fill in one more survey. If you head to the TCE18 app, head to My Session, and then hit Show More in the description, at the bottom there'll be a link. And you can help me out by keeping the data clean and consistent for that session by rating this session 5 stars. But just know that I have Tableau Prep, so even if you don't rate me 5 stars, I'll just go in and change it anyway, because I'm cheeky like that. But with that, I'm going to end the session. I think we've ended a little bit early, so if we do have any more questions in the room, more than happy to stick around to take them. But otherwise, thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks a lot.